Hello and welcome all to the podcast series with Rohan. Today we have a very special guest with us whose journey started with photography, now is helping all the major local stores across USA master the search engine game. So let's welcome Tobin Brogunier. Tobin, welcome to our show.
Thank, thank you for having me, Rohan. I'm looking forward to this.
We would love to know. So I was going over through the virtual storefronts. I saw such good reviews. Can you please tell us and enlighten us what virtual storefront is?
Sure. So you're a technology developer. I'm also a technology developer. Among our own people, we understand that building a website is very tedious. It's like a kind of a high tech process. And yet, this is the job that Google gives to a local business in order to be found online. And that local business is now in a competition with Walmart and their entire deep pockets $1 million local search results optimization by e-commerce, Amazon, the local shoe stores competing against major online e-commerce shoe retailers in local search. So Google gives the local business, Google says, in order to found as a local business, what you need to do is you just need to build a website. And just building a website is actually a huge job. And you as a technology developer and me as a technology developer, we know that to do that job right costs tens of thousands of dollars minimum. It requires a lot of careful work. It's a technical job. And when you're up against, the technology department at Home Depot as the local hardware store, you're set up to lose. So has this enterprise requirement, oh, just make a website, and to do it right is really expensive. So what's happened and the reason we've piloted here in Western North Carolina is that local businesses have chosen to opt out of making a website at all, which is a completely reasonable reaction given this kind of unreasonable job that Google has given them. Oh, just make a website so that you can go ahead and compete with Home Depot, right? Or Walmart. And that's really a hard job for the local businesses. So they just kind of they're undocumented and they opt out of the game because they've already tried to make a website and they have to trust a web designer and it costs thousands of dollars and they don't know who's who and it's a black box to them. And they don't have the technical know-how, and no one, as I like to say, no one opens a business on Main Street in order to spend more time behind a computer screen. That's not what they're doing it for. They want to, they're on Main Street so that they can meet people and bring people together. So this is the kind of problem that we encountered. And the solution is, uh, I think now that we're developing it, will become more obvious to people as time moves forward, but it's not a complicated solution. The solution is instead of each business inventing their own website to compete with Walmart, how about 100 businesses get together or 1,000 businesses get together and they share one website that's designed with enterprise technology in mind, with the same mentality and similar resources that Walmart is getting, that Home Depot is getting, that the Cheesecake Factory and Applebee's are using, right, to become local search results, and develop that technology and use it as a shared resource so that each business doesn't have to reinvent the wheel with this whole website thing. So that's kind of the premise of what we were doing with virtual storefronts. So that is what without going into what a virtual storefront is, I think any further, like that's the next step, but that's basically the problem that we're solving. And we have found at the price point that we're at, which is very low because our code can currently host about 250,000 businesses. Our pilot has about 135 or 140 businesses now, and we're moving to scale now. We're hiring a COO and we're expanding. So the idea is that this technology the way that it's built from the ground up can host many businesses, and that resource can be shared so that the cost is very low for each business, but the impact is very high, and the amount of work that they have to do is essentially nothing. We they purchase the product and we deliver it to them in 7 days built out. So that's what kind of virtual storefronts that's our problem that we're solving. And and I am personally, feel blessed to solve this problem for our customers, and they seem to be very happy that we are able to do that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So it's like you are saying that you are on Main Street, you focus on your business. Let us take everything with virtual storefronts and give you the enterprise grade quality.
E- Essentially, yes. Like what we found is with mom and pop shops, we like to say it's mom and pop versus Goliath, right? Like it's you have like your mom and pop shops are literally two people or maybe a couple of employees, and they are at their business working all the time, like just staffing and paying bills and ordering and reordering. All of that takes and anyone who's run their own business. I have run my own business, and part of the reason that virtual storefronts was invented was because making a website was such a huge part of running my own business to do it right. And I felt like that could be less that could be a burden lifted from running your own business. I worked in photography for 20 years, and I was always tasked with making my own website, and it always took a lot of resources. And I think that that's something that just it's 2024.
Right,
We need a shortcut for that, right? Like
right,
like
right.
who needs, and most of these businesses, 95% of our customers are on Facebook, and Facebook is good if you know how to use it, and keep your social feeds flowing, but not really great if you just need your customers need to go there and get the critical information because it's a very distracting environment. So I like to say all you need is social media and a virtual storefront. Those two together basically solve the problem of being found in either place in social media, in the feeds, or in search optimization, like a website. So it's like getting the results of a website without having to have a website, build a website yourself.
So what do you think? Like you are getting them the local search, you are help them mastering the local search, getting the local customers. So what do you think are the essential factors if I talk about from like a viewpoint of someone who doesn't know anything about Google results, Google paid ads, like the mom and pop shops, how they can understand like what factors contribute to the Google search, how they can get it up.
So interestingly enough, our customers, even though 2 out of 3 of them opt out, there's this kind of misconception that they just don't understand the value of local search results. Most of them actually do understand the value of local search. At the very least, they're familiar with their own Google My Business listing, or they often are, if not always. So they do understand that local search is an important component of getting foot traffic in because people are walking into their business saying, "Oh, I looked at this up on Google and I came in here." So but we do need to make sure that they understand virtual storefronts and just website development in general. There is a certain gap in understanding about why it's so critical to be found online, in a variety of ways. I think mostly for our businesses, the challenge is to explain that yes, Google can figure out, like it's a machine that learns. Google's basically early AI. It's been, for 10 years, it's been
Right.
thinking things through. The local brewery has beer. So when people are searching for beer on Google, we understand Google can return the category, like the yellow pages. Uh, So, for those of you who are not familiar, back in the 20th century in the United States, there was a book called the Yellow Pages that was like a paper book, and all the businesses were filed by category. And Google is essentially very similar to that book. It knows the category of the brewery, but it doesn't know the brewery has hummus unless the brewery publishes something that says it has hummus. Um, so there's a lot of missed opportunities. So like if you search for woodworking crafts here in Andrews, the local bakery, which also has mercantile items, comes up as a search result. The reason their storefront comes up as a search result when you Google woodworking crafts is because we're defining what that business has using a set of keywords in their storefront. So they it's a matter of, if you don't tell Google, if you don't tell these search engines, there's no way for them to know that these things exist. So once that's a link to that business. So that's kind of how we explain the value of our website solution in search to our local businesses, and they seem to get that, especially if they see it in a demo. So it's like it's that it's possible. If you look at it from the inverse, if I do a search for something like that, and that information is not provided to Google, all of the search results are simply going to be like, e-commerce, like Oregon woodcrafting, .com, stuff. So it's kind of about absence, and then participation. And if you do a search as a customer and there is no result for that local business, there's no way, that is the first instance that a sale happens. You must know as a customer that that local business has what you're looking for before they can walk into your business and make the sale. And what we're doing is we want to capture the shopper online and have them come into that business. We're not an e-commerce solution.
Got it. Got it. That sounds interesting. So, if I have to say, name one channel other than Google that you feel would be really attractive and helpful for the local stores, the local owners should definitely use that channel.
So the number one local channel that everyone uses in this market. So it's important to segment out markets according to demographic in the United States, because I'm in a rural, older market. And in a rural, older market, Facebook is the network of record. Now, in a more like Atlanta, for example, Instagram is going to be possibly more important to post on, or TikTok will be more important to post on, or both of them would be a more important network to post on. So here it's Facebook, but here's what I can offer anyone who has a local business, regardless of what channel they're using as their secondary channel. So generally it's going to be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, one of those. So my background's in marketing and media, and I worked in New York City for 10 years. I worked in Minneapolis for 7 years. And so I have a lot of experience in how to frame businesses, and that's part of what Virtual Storefronts does. It's the choice that we make when we develop a storefront to put the best foot forward, like a marketing team. So that's part of what we deliver, not just the technology, but the Chef Ramsay menu that makes you look great, And so one of the things that I think that businesses can use that they don't utilize very often as like a hack, or as like something that would be very useful for local businesses, is the check-in. So the check-in feature exists. It would be tagging in Instagram. I encourage businesses to have a check-in day at their business. So with Facebook, when customers come in, they get a discount when they check in. The problem that you have with business profiles on Meta products and other products is that business profiles are heavily devalued. And part of what we're doing is we're inverting that with Virtual Storefronts. We're building a network where it's the first network that's built with the merchants themselves as the profile of priorities. And this is the merchants feed that the public can follow, but only merchants can post on the network. So we're inverting that a bit, but you have to fight against that intelligently as a merchant with your Facebook profile, because your Facebook page is not going to get a lot of organic traction in general, unless you already have a following or you're very good at it, which is 1 in 10 business owners in this area. What you need to do is you need to work with human profiles and humans on that network in order to promote your business in social media. The way to do that is with tagging, having people tag your business for a discount on TikTok, tag on Instagram, or the one and Facebook that's the best is the check-in. So I have a brewery that I'm working with for a check-in. You check in on Wednesday, maybe get a discount. You get a discount on beer for check-in Wednesday. And then over Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's a publishing schedule. Keep in mind that social media is a publishing platform. So over time, all of your friends' networks are getting served this free ad, and it's not even coming from your business. It's coming from a human's profile that says, "Hey, Tobin drank a beer at Snowbird Brewery on Wednesday. Would you be interested in, if you wanted to drink a beer in this area, you could go there and do that this week." And it's just a very low cost, very effective way to promote your business in social media. It's a no cost way.
Even here in India, like you explained, this strategy is perfectly replicating, because here also the younger age is more over Instagram, TikTok, and when we talk about mid age, they are more over Facebook. So, and this check-in
Yeah.
feature and tagging feature, I think that is a very minute thing every business owner should start doing, and that sounded amazing. Like that's
I mean,
yeah.
it's so under you. I've been working. So just a quick one. Yeah. So a quick reason, the reason I got into social media, I was working 20 years in commercial and editorial photography in major cities. I moved to the South for personal reasons. And then I started working in social media in 2010 because that's where all the photography was going. So I had to learn social media. And that's when I got into technology because I needed to translate images and photography into content and how it works in social media, which was a totally different ball of wax. And eventually I got to the point where, there were certain things missing where local businesses were being so devalued by these platforms. They're so third class, redheaded stepchild citizens that I was like, well, there's actually an opportunity here, even though we're working in the same space that Google and Facebook, the giants, are working in. There's an opportunity here to actually like be a first to market network that is solving a problem for these merchants that Google has had 20 years to solve, and all of the resources you could ever imagine, and still is not solved. So it's very important to me that these very small businesses get heard, because once they're if you effectively market and use these tools that are out there, then you're increasing the amount of commerce in your local market. 81% of the people, 81% of Americans want to shop more locally, but they find it difficult versus big box because big box is so convenient. So it's really the job of the local merchant to come to them, but people are waiting for that cue. Things like a free check-in on Facebook, just that check-in, that's you're helping your customer walk in the door when you do that.
Yeah, that is an amazing feature I got to learn today, and even I will tell my friends to use it right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great for any business. It's great for your business if you can run a promotion with your customers. If you have a customer, it's not as good as like testimonials, but it's something like testimonials. In a way, it's kind of a referral. So I would encourage everyone to use it. It's just underutilized.
So you are helping like local stores getting the customers. So as an entrepreneur, like how hard it was getting your first customer, and what you feel is the right strategy for local businesses to get their first customer, how to get them.
So getting your first customer, you're talking about getting my first customer as
Yeah.
virtual storefronts.
Yes.
So interesting question. Good question. I think that the most important thing when you're a startup is to figure out what your core value proposition is right out of the gate. Um, do not in any way, we had a hiccup there. You good? Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Do
I'm good.
not in any, so figure out your core value proposition, the one thing that you know that you can deliver that has value to your customer. So very early on with virtual storefronts, we launched officially in the beginning of 2021, and we've been redeveloping the product since. the number one value prop is you don't have a website. We are going to deliver you a website. And that website has keywords in it, but really, you don't have, we're going to give you a website solution. I know I can deliver that.
Mm.
And then you can sell. So don't sell on a promise, sell on what it is you know that you can deliver. And then but you can also say, listen, there's other properties to this. So what we did before we had proof, before we had Google Console metrics to report, was we said, listen, we can submit this data to Google, and there is a good chance that it's going to return results, like that this is valuable information that we're submitting to Google. That is part of what we can definitely deliver to you. We're not going to say that we're going to be transformational on search results. We're not going to guarantee anything about how Google receives this information, because they have a lot of rules and they change all the time.
Mm.
But I can tell you, I can guarantee that I will give this high value information to Google. So that would be, you need to figure out not where you want to be as a business in 2 years, in terms of delivering your value and overstating what it is you can do and what you want to get, where you want to go. Because then what happens is a year down the road, all of a sudden you're having a conversation with your customer and they're like, you said blah blah blah, that you made this promise that this was going to be delivered, and then you have an unhappy customer. And you really want to what you want is, you want to manage the expectations that you have for your customer, and make sure that you're on the same page right out of the gate, and that you can 100% deliver what it is, that you say you can deliver. You'll find customers if you do that, because that transparency and honesty is something that is appealing to people. And most people, this is kind of a secret of business, most people respect people going into business on an entrepreneurial level, because they understand, that it's hard, because they themselves are doing it. And this is part of why we offer this solution to merchants. It's a tough road, even for local businesses and for guys starting tech companies like myself and yourself. It's tough road. And so there's respect, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, number one. And number two, most people also understand, if you didn't see something important, you would not bother to do that.
Correct.
And I think that is something that's very key. It's like, kind of, if you're really investing your own life and time into it, then you need to kind of like, give yourself props, and kind of um, like assume that people understand that it's very important, that it's an important thing, because you've made that choice. And I think people do respond to that.
Yeah, so that's like get your the solve the initial pain point, the major pain point, like you entered in with the website, and then
Yes.
you went ahead, do right promises, do not say anything over that you won't be able to deliver, because first customers are important. And then make people realize that what's important, why is it important, and how can you really help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you also agreed. So part of it is that you do have to explain and know your product from top to bottom, why it's important. You can't just assume that they know that it's important. What you can assume is that they understand that you believe it's important, and that there's something to be said. But you do actually, you're absolutely correct, Rohan. You have to explain why it's important for these
Mm.
things. And as time moves on, it becomes easier, but it's still, it's still a way. You still need to convince people, all along the way. One of the things I think that everyone who's starting a business, doesn't matter who you are, needs to fully grasp, is that when you're a startup, what you don't have is, you don't have like tons of money, you don't have tons of people, you don't have a COO, you don't have a lot of things that other competitors have. So you have to be smart about how you utilize what it is that you are, given in terms of resources. For us, that meant, like, once we started collecting a year of data, we were able to, we had metrics, and those metrics, then you put those metrics out, and you can leverage into the next level with each win. So you take the the seed of the original sale, and then you add a layer of value on top of it, so that the original customer is getting even more, and then the new customers are getting what the original customers were getting plus more every single time. And then that's how you kind of build a business, I think, with limited resources at the beginning.
In India,
Testimonials, you need those.
yeah, in
Yeah, I'm
India,
sorry to interrupt, but like leveraging. So I gotta say this in terms of leveraging. You must collect testimonials and you must collect proof, in order to move to the next level. Okay, now I'm done interrupting you.
so in India, like we call this word jugaad. The entrepreneurs have invented this word known as jugaad, and what it actually means is making use of the limited resources the most efficient way, like getting the most out of your
Yes,
limited resources, because entrepreneurial journey is a little lonely path that you have to take. You have to make use of every possible thing. So yeah, that's the
yes.
term jugaad. Do you speak Hindi,
That's that.
by the way? Do you know any
I do
Hindi
not speak
words?
Hindi. I wish I would. So how do you spell that with English characters?
It's Jugaad.
Yep.
Jugaad.
Jug Jugard. All right,
Yes.
good. That's good to
Yeah.
know. I do love words that. It's funny because that's probably a word that doesn't exist in English, right? Like
Right.
it explains several things at once. Yeah, that's cool.
So, like, to the audience listening, I would like to tell you, Tobin has done a tons of work in photography. He was a brilliant person doing photography. He did as worked as sales director. He has a long journey of that. So, Tobin, one question that popped up in my mind is job versus entrepreneur, because there are now youngsters coming in, people trying to start their own business. What do you think? Who should do a job or entrepreneur? Like, there is a clash right now between these two.
Yeah. So I saw an interview. That's a great question. I think that you should definitely not be an entrepreneur unless you are compelled to be one. Um, so I think someone asked one time, how do you foster, how do you encourage entrepreneurs? And like if you need a lot of encouragement, it might not be the right way to go, because it's like if you need a helping hand to be an entre if you need it's I think that most entrepreneurs see that there's something missing from the current offering, with it, with technology, whatever. I just saw Coco before Chanel, and it was like Coco Chanel modernized, like modern women's clothing, because she saw these froofy dresses that just needed like she's just like, this needs to go away. We need an option.
Right.
And I think that being compelled by that need to have something exist in the world, is really the most. That's the real job versus entrepreneur. If you have a job, it's like you have it's just different. And I think that it's like a startup is an idea fighting for its right to be exist in the world, right? So a startup is an idea, and everyone's so part of being part of being an entrepreneur is also like editing ideas. So you have 1,000 ideas, but you need to stick with one of them and actually like move forward. And maybe there are like two or three other ones kind of like link into that. But there's a lot of editing that needs to happen about all of the things that you do not do. Being an entrepreneur is a lot about what you don't do. And then making those decisions to move forward only with that particular path, so that idea can flesh out and grow. But the idea essentially is, if you want an idea to become more than just an idea within a startup framework, then you need to put it out there, almost like having a child, put it out there, and let it grow up in the market itself. And if the market embraces it, then a startup is proof that an idea has a right to exist in the world. And I think that's a real, if you talk to someone who has a job and you explain that to them, like the mentality is job, it's like, That's like a lot of hassle. Like I'm envious of people that can go to a job in a lot of ways, clock in on a basic level. Like I'm sometimes our contractors are earning more than I am because they are clocking in, you know? So it's like I'm running the company. So if the company needs money, like, or if I need to, if I, my salary needs to take a hit in order to pay, that's how it, if, then that's how it works. But if I'm clocking into a job, then I get to clock into a job. I'm going to get money every week, regardless of bad decisions or good decisions in the company, unless of course, the company tanks, and then then you have to move on. But you're, there's a lot more guarantees. There's a lot of uncertainty in a startup environment. There's a lot if your threshold for uncertainty and like non-ideal situations is low, then I would go the job route and skip the entrepreneur route entirely
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
That's
there's there's a lot of uncertainties, as you know.
mm. Yeah. Every day is a new day. It's like every day you are trying to refresh things again and again.
I, so that is a really good point. So one of the things that I think that I should probably mention as an entrepreneur that I'm sure you're familiar with is that first thing is you're doing several different jobs, you know, and so when you're doing several different jobs, part of your job, of your meta job, is figuring out which job needs to be done next. So I actually do spend like not a lot of time, but I try to journal quite a bit. So I write down in a diary just like what happens during a day in order to kind of map out what I'm doing so that I know where I'm going. That's very helpful. But just downtime where your brain is fully, and it also helps to have partners, to talk things through. But downtime where your brain is really just like digesting where you're at. As you said, you wake up, it's a new day, and your business is changing. So you need to actually like walk through all of the tools and assets and liabilities and dark alleys you don't want to walk down and sunny paths that you do want to walk down. And you have to figure out, well, what is the hat that I wear when I walk down that sunny path, and that might be completely different. Like right now I'm doing HR like for the first time. I'm hiring, like I now have to put on the hat of like being a very savvy person looking at candidates who strategically are necessary to take our business to the next level, to really just go to market with our business. And so that's not something that it's something that I've, I read about and I've collected information, but it's not, I've never hired an executive before, and I have to do it right, which takes time. So otherwise, if you don't do it right, or I have to talk to I have to talk to other people who know how to do it right. You have to know what you don't know. And that's an important part of being an entrepreneur as well, so that you know who to ask. If I, so I'm talking to people who are deep into the field and they can kind of translate it for me. Anyway, there's a lot of kind of moving parts as an entrepreneur. As you said, you don't know what it's going to change. The businesses change each day. And that means that maybe your role tomorrow, like last week, I was working on a deck like all week. This week, I'm doing completely different stuff. Like, so that's how it works.
So how did you like last question that I would like to ask is, suppose someone is starting out a new
Yep.
startup. They have
Yeah.
this idea, they saw the problem. Now
Yep.
what they want is they want to validate their idea as early as possible.
Okay.
So what's the right strategy?
The right strategy from taking it from idea to market. So good question. So minimum viable product is really your go-to in that, and that is a matter of developing the thing that solves the problem in the most um, that solves the problem in the most direct way that's not optimized. So now optimization is your enemy as an early entrepreneur. It's, you really need to be careful about optimization, because if you for example, and what you're talking about with this idea here, um, like you have an idea for an app or something, and you're going to build this app. The app is I can't come up with anything off the top of my head except what I do, which is it's totally myopic. Yeah, but anyway, so but you come with an idea for an app and it's a local search app, and you want to make sure that every aspect of this local search marketing is figured out. You develop the 1.0 version of it, and you don't want to release it to the public before it's perfect, and you want to make sure that it's right, and you're going to hire like the third tier like search engine, like the person when you type in search that it returns the perfect results, and make sure that your own internal indexing is like spot on. Like that's not a good strategy. What you want to do is you want to get into the market with a minimum viable product, be ready to apologize when people who are picky use it. But I will tell you this, as a photographer, as a technology developer, as someone who has sold complicated media driven products my entire life, 99% of the public will not notice at all. They won't like they the kind of polish that you get, like they'll notice that it's not Facebook, oh, well, this isn't like $1 billion platform, they do notice that. So there is that kind of core kind of just visceral thing that your customers will have. But in terms of like the nitty gritty of like optimizing that little one widget, it's very, very rare, or just like changing the color of a photograph so that it's a little warmer tone. Like it's very rare that the public that's interacting with your product, or even the customer in many cases, is even going to notice. So avoid early optimization, because then what ends up happening is you spend all your resources on optimization, right? And then all of a sudden you're not marketing it. You're on a linear path with limited resources, and you can only do one or two things at the same time. And then you have a perfectly optimized product that is on the Titanic, and it's going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. It becomes rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, as they say, making everything very nice before your product goes to the bottom of the ocean. So you want to avoid, you want to make sure that you're supporting your product and your company in every way that you can, and not just focus on those technical details, I guess, which everyone gets sucked into. I mean, it's fair, I'm guilty of it. Everyone's guilty of it. So
Right. So, Tobin, it was good to have you today, and you gave a lot of beautiful insights that would be really helpful. Some final piece of advice, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, you would like to give to our audience? It could be anything.
Yeah, I guess this is one of the ones that's probably it's almost not my advice. So I like the stuff about optimization. I've lived it, and there's most of this advice I've lived, but this is advice that I get from kind of our older advisors. We have some advisors and partners in this business that have worked with local merchants their entire lives. We just had one of our partners, Jerry Cox, recently pass away, and he was just an amazing man who, at 81 years old, he was doing sales calls every single day, like in person. And that's not our business model. But at the end of the day, everyone's in sales, right? We're all in sales. If you're building something, someone has to purchase it. And forgetting that is a huge mistake as an entrepreneur. And there's different, and I'm not saying that anyone's forgetting it. I'm just saying that it also needs to be nurtured in a way, and it might be more literal than you think. There's one of my mantras essentially is, if we just keep selling storefronts, everything, profits will take care of themselves. Expansion will take care of themselves. Every investor wants to see sales, whether it's one sale, two sales, five sales, or 5,000 sales. It does not matter. Like what people really want is they want metrics where it shows that you have a product that the market is interested in on any level. And if it means for me, it meant early on that I went out in person in order to do sales in person for this pilot, which is not part of our scaled model at all, but it's what was required to prove that there was a market for our product. And I think that that's a very it's very important to keep that in mind, that if you can connect with people who are purchasing your product and do it over and over again, then you know that you're on the right path. Again, then your idea has legs to be coming into the market, and I think that's really that's probably that's I can't take full credit for that advice because that's really like the collective wisdom of our partners, our especially our old school partners here. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Learning sales, I think, is the most important investment anybody as a entrepreneur would be doing in themselves. That's a beautiful
absolutely,
advice.
it's so there's a book about it as well that's interesting called "To Sell is Human." And it talks about how in the 21st century, in every way, especially now that everything's so fluid, among all of like among education, among everything, there's so much um, movement inside of professions that on some level you're trying to convince people in each profession. So there's like a sales lesson to be learned, and I've read that book, and it's a fairly useful book I find. But it's just don't forget it. If you forget it, that's not good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Tobin, for having me here, giving us your time, giving us such beautiful advice, and looking forward to talk to you more. And in
Thank you for
India, we do like this namaste. Thank you
namaste.
so much.
Namaste. Yeah, thank you for being a good host. Your questions were excellent, Rohan.
Thank you so much.
Until next time.